Hey everyone, I'm Ari here with Rachel, and we're your hosts for the Merry Writer podcast. This week we're on episode 231, and we're asking, what is your biggest writing regret? Before we dive into the topic, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening if you haven't already. And if you enjoy the show, please share it with friends and feel free to write a review. Okay, I am aware that I picked this topic, and wow, do I regret that. Because I picked it and then didn't even think about it until it kind of popped up that I needed to be recording it. So if I had to say what my biggest writing regret is, it's probably letting myself get waylaid for really long periods of time, even with legitimate issues, such as letting my depression convince me that I needed to stop writing. I have always been able to write through a lot of things, stress, anxiety, even depressive episodes. But let's see, I'm trying to think, it's about 12, 13 years ago. I hit a wall with depression following a death of a family member, even though we knew it was coming, and it really threw a wrench into the works. It kind of like derailed everything in my life, and it seemed to take me forever to get back to writing. And it's frustrating because I am aware that writing is my therapy. It is where I get all my stress out. It's where I pour all that stuff you can't say to everybody that you sometimes want to when you're in a bad mood. And I was just able to do that. But for some reason, that main time, I couldn't. It didn't help. I didn't want to touch it. I didn't see the point in writing about anything. Everything was just like, I might just burn it kind of attitude. And then 4 years ago, we had another family death, an immediate member of the family. And it kind of happened again. Not as badly, strangely enough, because I think I knew that that was such a detrimental thing to stop writing, because it is therapeutic for me. It's the best place my anxiety out. I will write stories. I will write my novels. I will write random angry scenes where all the shit I'm feeling gets put out onto the page. But it's hard because when you look back, you think, wow, I lost so much time and I lost so much pleasure and help by not realizing that it was important to try and continue writing. And as I say this, I'm sure there's people listening who go, yeah, but we know what depression's like, and if you can't do it, you can't do it, you just do what you thought. Yeah, I agree, but the simple fact is I can't get past the fact that I do regret that I lost so much time. The novel I was working on that was massive, it's like 220,000 words, which is too big. It is too big. I appreciate it's too big, but it was epic. And I never finished it. And it was close to being, it should definitely be close to being finished at 220,000 words. Probably could have been split into like 3 books. And I never went back to that. And I still can't yet. It sits there and it calls my name, but I left too much time. And yeah, and I worry that I'm going to keep doing that I'm going to keep stopping if things hit me too hard. And I'm never going to get anywhere. So yeah, if I had to say, that would be my biggest regret. Yeah, this was a really bad idea for a topic. Never doing that again.
No, I don't think it was a bad idea, because I think this isn't necessarily talked enough about, because I definitely agree. Like mental health, depression, anxiety, like everything under that umbrella could definitely debilitate you. And that's what brings on the imposter syndrome. And that's a whole nother ballpark. But it's like, I think so many of us have been there before, where something tragic happens in our lives. And even though writing is a safe space, you just can't get out of your own way and push through it. And there's so many times where you need to just take a step back and let things run its course. Because with things like depression, it's so many people are like, well, if you just get up and do it. No, it's not that easy. You have 100-ton weight sitting on your chest, standing on your shoulders. You can't do anything, and nothing sounds fun. Even if writing is your safe space, it doesn't feel safe anymore. It's kind of hard to describe, but I totally get that. And I think one of the most important things to remember is that time is a man-made object, and that time doesn't, it doesn't necessarily exist. Yes, the earth goes round. Yes, we have day and night, but time itself, who's to say how accurate it is? Let's be real here. And I think when it comes to that, like, because I know that feeling. I've been working on my novel for well over 10 years now. Probably, I say over 10 years, is probably a lot longer than that, but saying over 10 years makes me feel better. And you do get to that point where you feel like, oh, I'm never going to get anything done. So why am I still continuing this? But the fact that you are still continuing this and you still are coming up with these ideas, that's the reason, because that's what you're meant to be doing and that's what you enjoy. And you're going to have tough days, but you're still working towards it. And that novel that you still haven't completed because of that, like, that's a whole nother thing. Like, that's just your muscle memory, because there's this particular CD of music that I can't listen to. Allie and AJ. I don't know if you know who Allie and AJ are, but their album came out when my aunt passed away. So that's what I would listen to in the car going to and from my cousin's house and my house, because they live 30 minutes away. Now, every time I hear one of those songs, I am immediately brought back to that moment. So it's like your novel, it's like there's just like this dark cloud over it. And maybe someday you will get to the point where you're able to finish it and you're able to work on it again, even if it's just bit by bit here and there. But I think overall, like, I don't know. I feel like I had something a little more articulate to say in my head, but now that I'm actually speaking, it's not coming out.
No, I think that was good. It is, because sometimes you need someone to look outside and be like, what are you talking about? Of course, it's going to be hard, and actually you're right, 100% right. There is a cloud over it, and it's hard to even think, well, all I need to do is write a little bit more and then that one's finished, or well, it'll need to be chopped. But yeah, I can't even bring myself to even think about going back to it. And yeah, I have got huge amount of boxes of notes and folders of world building for it, and it's just like, guess that's just sitting around now. Yeah, it's a weird one.
It is. I mean, maybe the purpose of that novel was just to bring your writing up to a certain level so that you work on the current things you're working on. Maybe it's really not meant to be finished. But I want to share something with you that I recently learned I can't remember the person's name. It was an Instagram reel, so I apologize that I can't give this person a shout out. But they said that sometimes the way that you think, I mean, obviously we all know the way we think can hinder us, and like we put ourselves up against a wall. And this woman said that if you keep thinking about, well, why aren't I here? Why aren't I there? Why isn't my career working out for me? Why didn't I finish this novel? And you keep saying, well, I don't know. Or you keep saying, when am I going to finish this novel? I don't know. By saying, I don't know, you're basically telling your brain, like, oh, like, not that you don't care, but almost it's just kind of like a willy-nilly thing. And she said, instead of saying, I don't know, start answering with, I'm curious. When am I going to finish this novel? I'm curious to find out. And it kind of tricks your brain into saying, oh, yeah, let's figure this out. When are we going to finish this novel? And I started telling myself that fairly recently. And I got to say, it works. It's very difficult because there are times where I catch myself, but I'm like, it's just that one little positive spin on it. And it helps. It does help. I thought that was good.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I'm all for reprogramming my brain, because I could do with something like that. So yeah, thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. I hope it helps. Now, before I say my piece, I do just want to say that I am not a huge believer in regrets. And I know I'm thinking too deeply on this topic when I say that, but I just want to let everyone know that whatever decisions you made in the past were probably the right decisions for you at the time. And if it turns out that decision was a mistake, then that's still okay, because making mistakes is a surefire way to learn, improve, and grow your craft and as a person. So I'm just throwing that out there. With that said, my writing regret is not allowing myself to explore the writing industry more before I decided on what I wanted to do. And despite knowing that writing is everywhere, my 10-year-old brain thought, if you want to be a writer, then you have to be an author. Like, writing books was the only way to go. There was a point where I wanted to be a screenwriter, but my 10-year-old brain, very black and white. I was like, well, if you want to write movies and TV shows, then you have to move to Hollywood. I don't want to move to Hollywood. So therefore, I can't be a screenwriter. And that was the end of that. I didn't realize I could also be an editor, proofreader, copywriter, content writer, publicist, literary agent, journalist, etc., etc. And when I realized this, I did not know where I wanted to stand under the giant writing umbrella, which turned into me trying a few different avenues. But it gave me so much decision paralysis and a bit of an identity crisis in who I am as a writer. And that halted my writing and my creativity as a whole, like countless times. And I've been working on the same novel for well over 10 years, as I said, because I often stop writing altogether while I contemplate is this what I really want? Now here I am 20 years later, completely changing my career path. And which ironically, I will explain more about that in episode 234. I won't get into that because that's kind of off topic. But yeah, if I had allowed myself time to explore the writing industry and also like really look into myself and figure out what writing avenues I really enjoy and what I prefer, then yeah, I probably wouldn't have been working on all of these novels all of this time.
That's an interesting point, because there is something to be said with the writing umbrella, that it's like you're either an author or a journalist. That's all I learned. The author and journalist. And it was only in college when someone made a comment about, well, you could do technical writing. And it was kind of like, oh, there's other avenues. And that had never been mentioned. If you ever said when you were younger, oh, I want to be a writer, no one ever said, oh, screenwriting, journalism, technical writing. I can't say blog writing because blogs weren't a thing when I was young, but could write for magazines. There was all sorts of different things you could have done, but it was never mentioned. It was either, oh, you want to be a journalist? And when you said no, I don't want to write, that sort of thing. Oh, it's like, oh, you want to be an author? Oh, there's no money in that. Oh, that's a phase. You should stop writing. That's not a real job. And it's shocking, because even with journalism, the idea was like, oh, do you want to be a journalist? Now, if I'd have known more when I was younger about investigative journalism, I may have gone into that, because I am all for like investigating things. I love things like that. But to me, journalism was somebody gave you an idea or a story about what's going on in the news, and you wrote it. You know, oh, this politician did this, or this crime happened. You did nothing else but write the details, and it sounded dull. So I completely get that.
Yes. Yep. I mean, and it's actually kind of funny, because when I told people I wanted to be a writer, being an author was the default. Like, people just assumed, nobody said, oh, what type of writer do you want to be? Everybody was always like, what kind of books do you want to write? That was their response to that. And I had half people tell me, well, what are you going to do for a real job? Because there's no money in writing books. And the other half of the people would think of J.K. Rowling, and they'd be like, oh, wow, you should write a book so that I can tell people I know an author. I mean, it was like one way or the other. There was no in between. And because people didn't, I mean, not that I'm blaming anybody, but because people didn't say, what type of writer do you want to be? And instead they said, what books do you want to write? What genre? My brain was like, if I want to be a writer, I have to write novels. There's no other way around it. And yet writing is all around us. And when I quit my teaching job and I started to pursue writing full time, all these other doors opened up for me. And I was like, well, shit, what do I do now? And here I am. I quit my job in 2017. You do the math. I don't know what that math is. This is why I'm a writer. And I'm just now figuring out what I want to do. And I'm in the middle of a career change. Go figure. But speaking of lost time, there we go.
It's so frustrating, because it's like that all the time. And I understand schools and colleges and universities and parents, why they look at certain creative arts in that way. Because I was always an artist. I used to draw a lot. And I remember wanting to be an artist when I was little, because I drew all the time. And all I got was, oh, artists and painters don't make money, blah, blah, blah. Because it's always about money. But it is kind of, especially if you're in a lower income bracket, it is always about money, because where your food comes from, where your rent comes from, or your mortgage payments, it's important. And I can appreciate why parents and teachers will push that. But even though I was reading books by like Roald Dahl that had Quentin Blake's artwork in them, or even if we move up to, what was it, the Deptford Mice series by Robin Jarvis that had really impressive artwork in them, it never once dawned on me that I could be an illustrator for a kid's book, because it was just, everyone kept telling me art was literally the art you see on the walls in a gallery, and that wasn't something I could do.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not the cover art of a novel or a CD.
Oh yes, yeah.
Or a cassette. If you go back far enough, cassette. You know, some artist had to create those. You know, obviously this was before the digital age and everything. And even when that happened, but it was always pushed as well. If you're going to do art, it has to be like gallery worthy, and some millionaire has to come and go, oh yes, I want that for my living room. They wouldn't say living room, would they? They'd say like withdrawing room or something.
Their sitting room, their ballroom.
Ballroom, yeah. whatever these people have. And that was it. And there was no choice of doing anything. And then you look at Matilda and the Twit and Charlie, what's it called? Charlie and the Chocolate. It was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And you see those artworks and you think, wow, I could have done that. I mean, there's nothing saying I can't do it now, but I'd have to get my artwork back up and everything. But yeah, it's shocking how you're kind of pigeonholed. As soon as you say you want to do something creative, you're just pigeonholed. It's like if you want to do music, oh, you've got to be a band. It's like, you could write jingles, you could do scores for movies, you could work in the orchestra. I mean, all of it needs training and everything, but it's almost like you say one thing and then you get pointed in a direction, and if it's not the direction you really want to, or you think you can't do it, there's like no more direction for you.
Exactly. I couldn't have said that better myself, because it's true. You don't really think about, and I think it's because as a kid, you're very limited. Like when I was growing up, I'm a millennial. I grew up with them telling me you have to graduate high school, then you have to get into a good college, and then you'll have a career, a great career for the next 40 years. I was lied to. They didn't know they were lying to me at the time, but I was lied to. I mean, this economy is ridiculous. And here I am having an identity crisis at the ripe old age of 30. And I realized that when this episode releases, I'm going to be almost 31. Great.
You know what? Come back to me when you're 43.
I will. I'm still going to be sending you freakishly long emails at that age.
That's your writer in you. You just love to send the long emails.
See, I could have been a copywriter.
Yeah, that I constantly ignore because I look at them and go, oh, I need more time for that, and then forget all about them.
That's fair. I don't blame you. Totally don't blame you.
Okay, yeah, we were just going to share the one regret each. I'm sure we've both got a lot more, but we're just going to stick with one each. So with that, let's turn it over to you guys. What is your biggest writing regret? And it can be a big thing, a small thing, whatever it is, something that bothered you in your writing life. Let us know your answers in the comments so we can chat about it. Remember, we do release new episodes every Wednesday. Next week, we are joined by a guest and we will be discussing what creative writers need to learn. Look at that. It's almost connected. To ensure you don't miss it, hit the subscribe button on the way out. As always, thanks for listening to the Merry Writer podcast, and we'll see you next week. This podcast is brought to you by Sticky Notes. Our walls are covered. The music, titled Inspired, is by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under Creative Commons 4.0.